Chapter 21, The Queen's Last Words. The Queen loved soup. She loved soup more than anything in the world except for the Princess Pea and the King. And because the Queen loved it, soup was served in the castle for every banquet, every lunch, and every dinner. And what soup it was! Cook's love and admiration for the Queen and her palate moved the broth that she concocted from the level of mere food to a high art. On this particular day, for this particular banquet, Cook had outdone herself. The soup was a masterwork, a delicate mingling of chicken, watercress, and garlic. Roscuro, as he surfaced from the bottom of the Queen's capacious bowl, could not help taking a few appreciative sips. Lovely, he said, distracted for a moment from the misery of his existence. Delightful. See? Shouted the pea. See? She stood. She pointed her finger right at Roscuro. That's a rat. I told you it was a rat. He was hanging from the chandelier and now he's in Mama's soup. The musicians stopped playing their guitars. The jugglers stopped juggling. The noble people stopped eating. The Queen looked at Roscuro. Roscuro looked at the Queen. Reader, in the spirit of honesty, I must utter a difficult and unsavory truth. Rats are not beautiful creatures. They're not even cute. They are really rather nasty beasts, particularly if one happens to appear in your bowl of soup with pieces of watercress clinging to his whiskers. There was a long moment of silence, and then Roscuro said to the Queen, I beg your pardon. In response, the Queen flung her spoon in the air and made an incredible noise, a noise that was in no way worthy of a queen. A noise somewhere between the neigh of a horse and the squeal of a pig. A noise that sounded something like this. And then she said, There's a rat in my soup. The Queen was really a simple soul, and always, her whole life, had done nothing except state the overly obvious. And she died as she lived. There's a rat in my soup were the last words she uttered. She clutched her chest and fell over backward. Her royal chair hit the floor with a thump, and the banquet hall exploded. Spoons were dropped. Chairs were flung back. Save her, thundered the King. You must save her. All the King's men ran to try and rescue the Queen. Roscuro climbed out of the bowl of soup. He felt that, under the circumstances, it would be best if he left. And as he crawled across the tablecloth, he remembered the words of the prisoner in the dungeon, his regret that he did not look back at his daughter as he left her. And so Roscuro turned. He looked back. And he saw that the princess was glaring at her. Her eyes were filled with disgust and anger. Go back to the dungeon, was what the look she gave him said. Go back into the darkness where you belong. This look, reader, broke Roscuro's heart. Did you think that rats did not have hearts? Wrong. All living things have a heart, and the heart of any living thing can be broken. If the rat had not looked over his shoulder, perhaps his heart would not have broken. And it is possible, then, that I would not have a story to tell. But, reader, he did look. Chapter 22. He puts his heart together again. Roscuro hurried from the banquet hall. A rat, he said. He put a paw over his heart. I'm a rat, and there is no light for rats. There will be no light for me. The King's men were still bent over the Queen. The King was still shouting, Save her! Save her! And the Queen was still dead, of course, when Roscuro encountered the Queen's royal soup spoon lying on the floor. I will have something beautiful, he said aloud. I am a rat, but I will have something beautiful. I will have a crown of my own. He picked up the spoon, and he put it on his head. And there is a picture. Yes, said Roscuro, I will have something beautiful, and I will have revenge. Both things, somehow. These are those hearts, reader, that will never mend again once they are broken. Or if they do mend, they heal themselves in a crooked and lopsided way, as if sewn together by a careless craftsman. Such was the fate of chiaroscuro. His heart was broken. Picking up the spoon and placing it on his head, speaking of revenge, these things helped him put his heart together again. But it was, alas, put together wrong. "Where is that rat?" shouted the king. "Find that rat!" "If you want me," muttered Roscuro as he left the banquet hall, "I will be in the dungeon in the darkness." And that is the end of chapter 22.